Welcome to Podcast Sound Advice, the place for up-to-date podcast tactics and trends. You'll find actionable strategies to help you grow your audience, expand your influence, and monetize your content. Join Phyllis and Kelvin for Podcast Sound Advice starting now.
Well, welcome to Sound Advice Podcast. This is Phyllis, and today I'm joined by Kelvin, as usual. Yep. And we have two great guests today. We welcome Ash, Val, and Mel C to the podcast.
Hello.
Hey.
So for those who don't know, Ash, Val, and Mel are the genius and inspiration behind the Sugar for Your Lemonade podcast, which is kind of new. They just launched last year and it's off to a really great start, and they're putting together really great episodes. So we are really happy to have you here today.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so let me start really quick just so the listeners can get a feel for who you are in case they don't know you. Just Ash, I'll start with you, Ash. Val, just give us a little background on kind of who you are, what you do, where you show up in the world.
Well, I started my kind of professional life in personal training, and it has evolved over the past decade and a bit into a lot of just more emotional therapy and mental therapy, because I found a lot of what people were going through in their physical side had deeper roots and I just couldn't figure it out. And so for the last decade, I have just been maddeningly researching everything, looking everything up. And it's been a wild ride. I've taken quite a few rabbit holes to get where I'm at. And it is just the coolest thing. So I do a lot of, subconscious work, emotional work, dealing through traumas. And I find that that's actually had the best physical effect on people. So that's the Coles notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible work, actually. Mel, go ahead and give us a little bit of info.
Well, a bit similar to Ashley. I've been a personal trainer for over 12 years now, competitive athlete into CrossFit land, Olympic weightlifting. So that is where I kind of show up into more like a mindset coach, more like a strategy, discipline. This is kind of more my avenue. I do subconscious imprinting. I do work with emotional work as well, because I realized in my career that a lot of stuff with athletes were limited by their subconscious patterns and stuff that were holding them back. So my goal when I joined subconscious imprinting sort of world was to really help athletes with their patterns, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, that's fascinating. And I did not know about the Olympic weightlifting. So tell me a little bit about that.
Mel's a beast.
Yeah. So I've been...
Because you look like a tiny thing,
Tiny and mighty, though. Damn.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
So I started my career sort of as an athlete in CrossFit land, and I was really known for being that strong girl. Then I decided to jump into Olympic weightlifting because you could go further and further. And I had some really great goals. In 2020, I had made it to Worlds and was supposed to go to Japan and Puerto Rico and all that stuff for the Pan Am Games.
Nice.
And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, those goals got a little pushed back. So because we're not allowed to travel for a bit. But this was my basically full-time sport for about 2 years.
Wow. So are you planning to, I know you have there's an episode where you talk about your background a lot, but for people listening now, are you planning to go to Japan if they do it next year or later this year, I should say?
Yeah, so I'm hoping to get back into sort of more training once gyms are opening back and I can touch back with my coach and get back into a routine. So eventually requalify and re-go later. I had kind of taken a step back into competing in the last couple years into CrossFit, but now that I had more time and more drive, I kind of back into it. And I think I'm hoping so anyways. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
If you want to be motivated, Mel's the person to talk to.
Oh my goodness, I guess. So for our listeners, in case you can't tell, you guys are both in Alberta, Canada,
Yeah.
But obviously Mel is from Quebec.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Just a little bit of that Canadian flavor in there, which I love. All right. So let's move on and talk about a little bit. Tell everybody, because you guys both have your independent expertise and practices, but you came together to partner on this great podcast project, the Sugar for Your Lemonade project. So Ash, why don't you tell us a little bit about how that started?
Well, Mel and I have been friends for well over a decade. We are basically sisters. And so we were roommates for a while. And it's how long? 4 or 5 years ago, we were roommates.
Yeah.
And we always kind of tease that it's man, we have all these epiphanies all the time. And like think like so well together and like grow. And it's like, man, we should have our own like reality show. Back then podcasts weren't as big a thing. And so then the pandemic came and it was just one of those things that is like, hey, remember that idea? It's like, why don't we do that now? And so that's kind of how the podcast came alive, was just like the pandemic gave us a lot of time and space. And it's just like, and we were older now. We're wiser.
So
we have
wise.
wisdom.
Aren't we all?
Like sprinkles of arrogance and being youthful. And now it's like, we're a little bit more grounded in reality. We have some wisdom. And it's like, it'd be really cool to share what we've learned over the past decade together and share that with the world.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. And it's clear in your podcast that you guys do know each other well, and it comes across really well that you're good friends, and that you also can kind of, I don't know if I would use the term call each other out, but you definitely can kind of like, speak to like, hey, I remember this, which is great. And so, Mel, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Sugar for Your Lemonade name? I think it's incredibly, I love it. I think it's just really fun. And you immediately, as soon as you hear it, I think it just gives people a really good idea of what the flavor of the podcast is going to be. Oh, flavor. Nice pun. Okay. So I didn't even plan that. So, so tell us a little bit about where that came from.
It's a funny story on that one, because Ashley and I, yes, we call each other out. And yes, we have this way of doing things that is a little bit different. So Ashley's been the person that's been collecting, like she's taking courses and so much knowledge, and she's taking her time and she's collecting all of the lemons. And I'm like the Frenchy fiery, like doing everything quick and whatever. So eventually I said to Ashley, I'm like, okay, you've got enough lemon. You've got to make your lemonade. And then she started to make her lemonade, because it was like she started like putting herself out there and creating those amazing programs. And then what was it?
I think I was having a breakdown or something. I was just like, I was having a moment. Oh my God. And she's just like, it's time to add some sugar to your lemonade. And it was just like, okay. I don't even remember what it was. But then I was like, I think it was like an hour later or something. It's like, oh my God, I think that's the name for our podcast.
That's a great story.
It's just always like, you do whatever you can with what you got, but sometimes it's good to add a little bit of a sugar in there to see like what else is possible. What else can we create with what's going on right now, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. And you guys do bring it. I mean, it's obviously just a really great name from a sort of branding and sort of just a mindset thing. So people kind of know exactly what you're up to. But you guys really are the sugar. Like you're fun and encouraging. And when I listen to your podcast, and I always know I'm going to kind of get a little bit of laughter. And also you kind of work some stuff in there where I'm like, like you give me a little something to think about too, which is really great.
That's the goal, right? Like we don't like, we're not here to preach or teach. It's just like, hey, have you thought of it this way? Is really all we're kind of out there for, is like, hey, have you taken this perspective? And just leave it there and take it or leave it. But that's kind of our goal.
Yeah. So it's actually really fun to hear that if we get a little one idea from our podcast, well, we've done our job, because that's kind of what we want, right?
Yeah, actually. Well, yeah. And you guys are great at it. So if people are listening, if you haven't listened to their podcast, you now have a good idea of the flavor and a little bit of perspective, which is great. So moving into that, I know we helped you kind of get the podcast started last year, but I would love to know a couple of things about your experience. So what did you find? Is there anything about podcasting that you found hard or challenging, or something that was difficult for you?
What's the hardest thing about podcasting?
Well, before Squadcast, it was getting, am I allowed to swear? It was getting motherfucking GarageBand to work. Oh my God. That was just the bane of my existence. Like trying to get 2 mics and then realizing we don't actually need 2 mics, and then doing this and trying to save it and transferring the file. Oh my God. And then you guys told us about Squadcast, and that was the game changer. So,
so thank you for that.
Mel didn't experience any of that. She was very patient and just let me have my little rants. Definitely the beginning was that. And then after, I think now is just, what is it now? I don't know.
I think for me, the beginning was to just settle my nerves into talking into my, because it's really almost like we had to I re-listened to the first few episodes, and it's like, oh my goodness, we're talking so fast and we're get everything out. But it's adorable to see us kind of grow through it and just calm down. And it's kind of a funny thing, because from my super competitive experience, everything has to be perfect from the get-go. It's like, no, we can chill. This is something that I've learned down the road. We can chill, and then if we need to pause, we can pause. It's not live, and it's just things that I did not know. I thought everything had to be perfect from the get-go. So that's a couple things that I've learned.
And that's where I come in. I'm very chill about that
Yeah,
stuff. I mean, like,
chill.
yeah, I was freaking out about the mics, but like overall, it's just like,
Well, you've apparently worked it out with the mics. So
yeah, we finally, it took some time, but we got it, I think.
Well, you do have it, and your sound quality is great. You come across great. But Mel, thank you for sharing that, because I think some people, part of what stops them maybe from podcasting and doing maybe even other things, right, is just that getting started and knowing like they're not already really great at this yet, right? And they can't be perfect. And I tell people all the time about podcasting, one of the things that I do like about it is that it's so forgiving, right? You can do a retake, you can edit out whatever, you can make some changes and still come up with something you're really happy to share without having to be sort of this, perfect speaker or perfect at, every little aspect of the podcast experience.
Yeah, and like to learn to grow with it, right? Because if this is your first time doing this, it's probably not going to be the best thing. But as you progress through it, it gets better and better. So yeah.
Yeah. So, and I would like to just commend you too. I think both of you from the very beginning, your podcasts have great energy. You both come across really well. I think some people are maybe a little bit hesitant to just let their personality shine, but you guys do right from the get-go. So I think, and your listeners, they get that, right? They feel like they know you. And so they don't expect you to be some sort of perfect aspect of that. They want somebody they can relate to and listen to. And you guys, I think, nailed that from the very beginning.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, well, did that.
I received that.
So on the flip side, then, what would you say is like sort of the easiest thing or the most fun thing and enjoyable part of podcasting?
I really enjoy talking.
Yeah.
For an introvert, it's kind of weird, but like there's something about the podcast that it's like, it's really fun to like, I guess finally like get those ideas out there and like talk to somebody else. I talk to myself all the time. So it's like, it's really nice to like
do the same thing.
And yeah, like we did an episode on me moving to Alberta and learning English and all that stuff, and the struggle that it was for me to not being able to speak to people, because I'm a really social and like extrovert person. I like to talk to everyone, so now I can even talk to more people. So this is the funnest and the easiest thing for me, I think.
Oh, that's awesome. If there's somebody out there that's listening that's like, well, thinking about podcasting, or they've maybe had an idea for it and they've never really moved forward, what would you share with them about maybe something they could do, or what bit of experience could you share for them that would be helpful?
Well, if I can start, I've had some friends that started podcasts without any guidance, so without any producers or anybody to help them. And they took a really freaking long time getting everything going because they kept running into challenges. So at first, like when we first talked about doing a podcast, Ashley suggested you guys because we knew you from the Empowered Healers. And like the first investment, at first I had a mini heart attack, not heart attack, but I was like, are you sure we want to do this? And then as we invested a little bit with you guys, it got so easy. So that would honestly be my recommendation. Like, ask people that know what they're doing to help you, because your job is not to be a professional at all the behind the scenes stuff, because
stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane. Like if you want to talk about emotional trauma, you talk about emotional trauma. You don't worry about producing and all that stuff. So I would say, like don't hesitate to invest a bit of money and then get some help from the get-go. 100%. Otherwise, yeah.
I would totally agree with that. Like you guys gave us literally a to-do list, like all of the tasks, like just everything we needed to know. And it was something I could print out and look at. And it was just like, this probably saved me at least 2 or 3 months of heartache, and like knowing what information is actually correct or not. And like, just all of that, like it saves so much energy. And like, I value my energy. I don't want to put it in places that frustrate me. So I was happy to pay money to have all of that energy saved. And it made the process so easy. And then if we had questions, it was just like, hey, what do we do about this? How do we do this? And you guys were there to answer. It was perfect. So yeah, I would absolutely agree. Hire a professional. Get your ideas, hire a professional, and start slow. Like we started with twice a month, like every 2 weeks. And now we're going to bump it up. But like we had no intention of that at the beginning. We're just kind of going with the flow. So, but we didn't put any pressure on ourselves to like, okay, we have to have an episode every single week. We have to do this. We have to do this. It was just like,
yeah.
Well, you just said you like to talk. So now you get to do it more.
So tell us a little bit about that. The your game plan. I know starting in February, we're recording this towards the end of January. but you're going to be weekly. So tell us a little bit about your mindset and kind of why you decided to do that, and anything that listeners might want to know about the updates and the coming information.
Well, as you asked us at the beginning a little bit about ourselves, you were like, what? I had no idea you were an Olympic weightlifter. And what? I didn't know that this about Ashley, right? So we both have a lot of different things to bring on the table. So we decided to continue doing our episodes together because
we're hilarious.
Because we're hilarious. And
you are. And I would hate to see you stop doing that, just as a personal aside. But okay, go ahead.
Absolutely. So yeah, this is going to continue because this is what we love doing. But we also want to add up a little bit of my discipline in an episode and giving tips that I'm using in my daily life. And also interview maybe some people that are more around me into athlete land and all that stuff. And Ash will kind of do the same too, right? So she'll jump in more into her colors in her solo episodes. So that's what we're looking to do.
Yeah, right. Because Mel and I are very opposite in a lot of ways. She is the Energizer Bunny morning person that gets all the things done and all this stuff. And I'm just noon. I'll get there. So I'm very much like the tortoise and she's the hare, and it's great. So, but because of that, we have very different perspectives on things. We have different interests. We have different strengths. And I think that it'd be really valuable to be able to bring them out individually as well as collectively. Because when we get together and we start chatting about stuff, it's just oh my God, all the epiphanies and so much stuff happens, but it's also individual. So it'd be really cool to be able to give that to people and then, just kind of expand that way.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Well, I am really looking forward to more of that, and actually just more of you guys, because I do enjoy it. For somebody who's listening again, we'll start with you, Mel. What episode might you direct somebody that's listening that doesn't know you yet? What is there an episode or two that you might want to send them to that just gives them a good sense of sort of who you are and that sort of thing? What would you tell them that you might want to listen to first? Anything come to mind?
Well, I mean, we did record a full episode on me and my story and and being French. That said, this was kind of why I moved to Alberta and all that stuff. But what I really liked was the episode that we recorded at the end of the year into a reflection and all that stuff, because it shows kind of the work that we're doing on ourselves daily. And it's we basically wrapped it in a bow and we're this is what happened this year and this is who I am now. So I think it would be a good one to start with.
Episode 8, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah. The cliche embracing.
Based on 12/29, I think.
Yeah. Very good.
Well,
I'm looking at it.
We will put that in the show notes, and I'll give you a link for that. So we'll put that where it's really easy for listeners to find and just and listen to that right away if they want to. And Ash, I'll ask you the same thing.
Well, it's actually, I think, the one that hasn't been quite released yet, the one that's coming out this coming Tuesday.
Okay.
The Dream Big Bish.
Is this how we call it?
Yeah, by the way.
I didn't even
know. I just think that one was just so we were on fire in that episode. And I thought it was really cool because we take some bigger concept words and really bring it down. And that's kind of the point in this whole podcast is to normalize a lot of this stuff and explain things that are what is manifesting? That's such a buzzword and it makes me want to throw up a little bit. But but what does that really mean? Because there is a lot of power to it. So it's how do we talk to people about it and get them to do it and see how powerful it is beyond the cliche of what it sounds and everything. And I just thought, I think that one is going to be a very good one. So that one, or I'm a big fan of Dead Dads.
Dead Dad was
that's episode 3.
Yeah, that one is episode 3. That one startled some people, but
a little bit. Yeah.
But I thought it was really good because we were really, really truthful in that episode. We said things that might offend some people as far as what grief looks like and stuff like that. But at the same time, I think it offered a lot of comfort to people that felt weird about grief. And so I thought that was a really good episode.
Yeah, we did get a lot of comments back on this one. A lot of people opening up oh, thank you so much for saying this. I never knew that this was allowed to feel like this when grieving.
I've been feeling guilty for the past however decades because I thought that I needed to blah blah blah, and it's just to be able to offer people relief from that is huge. So I really like that episode.
Yeah, that was good too.
Yeah, I agree. That actually was a really powerful episode. Now, the one that's coming out, the one that we're referring, the Dream Big Bish, is coming. It will go live on January 26th. And actually, it'll already be live because this is going to go out later than that. Kelvin, what number is that one going to be?
10. If it's the next one.
Okay.
I was there to 10.
So So episode 10, again, we'll put all this in the show notes and the links. Before we give you that information and before we sign off, really quickly, I'll start with you, Ashval. Let people know where they can find you if they would like to connect with you, find out about the work that you do, or anything like that.
Basically, any media, the Ashval. So Instagram, TikTok, Facebook's weird. I don't know why. So maybe don't find me. I'm not on there, so don't go on Facebook. Like TikTok, Instagram are probably going to be your best bets. And then Ashval at theembodiedhuman.com if you want to email me directly.
Okay, great. I will make sure also that's the links to that are in the show notes. I am connected with you on Instagram. I'm not doing the TikTok thing yet, so perhaps I need to do that. Kelvin does TikTok all the time.
I don't do TikTok. I watch TikTok.
He's a TikTok consumer.
It's a whole different beast, that app. It's different, but I like it.
It's hilarious. Okay. I think it's great. You can find just about anything you want on there. That's for sure.
And you know what? It is because of TikTok that I literally have taken my work worldwide. Like I have clients all over the world now because of TikTok, and it is like the wildest experience. So I'm a big fan of TikTok.
I found a workout program that I can do on TikTok. So
yeah, there's everything.
So you're telling me I need to go get some workouts on there. Got it.
Well, okay. Workouts for a 57-year-old out of shape guy. Okay. So not an Olympic athlete workout.
Right. So, okay. Well, and I just made a note because I think that sounds like maybe that could be another interview in the future so that you could talk to us about how TikTok took you worldwide. But that's fantastic to hear and super exciting. So, Mel, if people want to connect with you, if there's an aspiring Olympian out there or other person who's like, she's my jam, I got to get a hold of her, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, I do have Instagram is probably the best way. Got Mel_connects_ the dots. We'll put it,
probably simplify that.
Yeah, we'll simplify that. Not connect the dots. Or I do have my athlete page, which is just Melissa Chatigny, so my full name on Instagram.
Okay, we'll put the links to that so you can get it. I know that on Instagram you have a sugar for your lemonade on Instagram as well. So that's a great place to start. And I think both of you can get links and connect with them both individually from there as well. So yeah, so I want people to be able to find you easily. And if you're listening to this and you want to just go to one place for all of it, you can go to the Sound Advice podcast page, which is soundadvicestrategies.com/podcast. And you can find this episode with Ashval and Mel, and it'll direct you further. You definitely want to check these ladies out. They are fun and they're funny and they're inspiring. And you can't listen to their podcast and not it is a good listen, and you'll feel better and you'll feel energized and you'll have a laugh, and you'll also maybe kind of walking away going, yeah, okay. Like maybe I need to look into that. So thank you guys both for being here and taking time to be interviewed. We probably should come back and do this again because I know there's a wealth of information and we've just sort of scratched the surface, but we appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, that was super fun.
It was fun.
Yeah, of course. All right. Well, thanks a lot. And yeah, this will be on the site and we'll share it so you guys can post it on the Lemonade Instagram account as soon as it's live.
That's our wrap for this episode. We hope you found today's sound advice helpful. Let us know what you think by leaving us a review. You can get more resources at podcastsoundadvice.com. Until next time.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM. Women's voices amplified.